be killed by Titus if they wish to return home together. Back on Besaid, Waka and the villagers search for the missing Yuna and Titus, as well as the Aurochs boat, only recover the Aurochs trophy at sea. Briar aids in the search when he is approached by a suspicious Lulu, asking why he came to Besaid. He answers it was to protect the temple from the recent thefts and help the elderly with daily chores. Lulu claims she had witnessed people transform into fiends by the ruins while shouting out Briar, Briar. Briar denies, saying she misheard it but knows it's true. Later that night, Briar ponders his past and the phenomenon of people starting to turn into fiends. He mentions not seeing the fiend of a certain Yevon priest whom he made a promise, and looks up into the sky, saying that star is not the Eye of Enri but Nightberry. Briar had a wife named Marrow, who was killed by Yevon soldiers, and daughter called Luchelle, who was requested to change her name to Mora by a priest before getting married off. He runs into Buddy, Brother, Riku, and Shinra, and gets irritated at hearing them speak Albed. On seeing Shinra, he shouts, "What the hell is a Bedor doing here?" and attempts to attack before being knocked out by pain and tied up in Besaid Temple. Briar remembers his past as Kush's guardian, Velm witnessing a Bedor slap Kush awake before being shot by another fake Bedor, which explains his hatred for them. Curious as to what Bedor are, Shinra questions Briar, who explains the origins of the Albed. He tricks Shinra into releasing him by promising to repair their airship before knocking him out and making an escape. Briar realizes he's an unsent from 1,000 years ago, and now that he has acknowledged it, he does not have much time left. Back in the other world, Yuna tells Titus she wants to be alone for a while and goes out for a walk, but does not return, leaving Titus worried. While Titus is looking at Luchelle's statue, Kush appears and explains she is a Jushin. She makes a bargain with him and could grant him the power to return to his world on the condition that she finds the Kush in his world and kills her for both him and Yuna to return together. Titus does not understand, and she tells him a man named Briar will know. She grants him power that allows Titus to return by imagining his destination and running, and Titus returns to the Besaid of his world.
Like, this story is so fucking weird. I can't even, like... I can't even keep track of what the fuck's going on.
It's like, Titus just teleported. Because fuck, who cares? He just did. By the way, he was decapitated earlier, but he's fine.
Yeah, like Kale said, you were dead. I got better.
The story gets more ridiculous as it goes on, I swear. So let's see. Meanwhile, Yuna, still in the other worlds, thinks about her time spent with Titus so far and how she wants them to understand each other's suffering. Yuna remembers what the god in her dream told her and about how he wants a certain girl killed, but is reluctant to tell Titus about it as she knows he would carry out the order for her sake.
He's gonna get hit on purpose to get some bloody lost.
She runs into Kush, standing at an altar, who tells her about Summoner Infernal from 1,000 years ago, who was the one who appeared in her dream and helped bring back Titus. Infernal's real name is Joy, born in a place called Muraka, otherwise known as Luca in Yuna's world. Kush asks about Yuna's feelings for Titus, which she replies that being with him was somewhat painful. Kush explains that Titus had understood her desire to be alone, an understanding of which Kush herself envies. Yuna spots the names of the gods carved on a stone beside the altar, from which the summoners and guardians adopted their names. Lucial, Gari, Arb, Velm, Kanila, Sloan, Mayu, Mika, Gecko, Ramondo, Anri, Infernal and Kush. Kush makes a deal with Yuna that she'll bring her to Infernal, provided that Yuna does not send her to the far plane before shining brightly and dispersing into fireflies. So this is basically the same stuff that happened before, just from Yuna's perspective. Yuna finds herself on a rusty boat with a skinny old man with long white hair, who is revealed to be Infernal, now known as Joy. He explains he is no longer the muscular redhead he once was, that the name Infernal, or God of Beauty, is no longer appropriate for him. He tells her about the Faith, and that while in Yuna's world, they were created by Yunalesca for summoners to fight sin. The Faith during the Machina War were created by the summoners themselves with the help of someone they shared deep feelings with. Infernal shows Yuna a scene in which she blushes in embarrassment. Infernal apologizes and explains there are easier ways to make a Faith. The summoners and Faith must share a mutual sympathy to summon Aeon, something which Joy says he was not able to do adequately. He explains the island she was on was summoned by him, created with the use...
Oh yeah, one gappy piece.
With the use an uncountable number of faith. He used the law of faith to create an island. Yay. Infernal tells Yuna to go down into the cabin which reeks of dead bodies. Inside is a chocobo surrounded by fireflies, i.e. another summon. Yuna encounters 4 fake Bedor, 3 male and 1 female, holding what looks like a blitzball, the one that exploded on Titus. Joy explains that they, along with him, had escaped the island during the war on this boat, but ended up having to return after 1 week due to there being too many enemies at sea. By the time the war had settled and the era of the temples in Yevon began, leading to the execution of the Bedor. Yuna asks if the boat is real or a summon, and Dwight replies it must be real as he stopped the summon, unable to continue due to inadequate bonding with the Faith. Yuna dashes outside, realizing that they have returned to Besaid of her world. A mass of fireflies gather to form Breer, whom Yuna remembers as the man who was dispatched from the Vel Besaid. Joy and Breer know each other, as they were Infernal and Velm in their past. They argue how Infernal betrayed Velm by taking Kush and using her as his Jushin. Infernal orders the Bedor on board to eliminate Breer using the bomb, which misses and starts rolling towards Joy. Joy tells Breer how Kush loved him and grieved greatly to the point of her own deterioration before the ball explodes, with Joy vanishing into fireflies. Breer asks where Kush is.
It's okay, people come back. No need to worry.
Where was I? Joy tells Breer how she Kush loved him, grieved greatly. Plan. Duration, fireflies. Breer asks where Kush is, to which Yuna replies she does not know, deciding to keep quiet about Titus' order from Infernal to kill her. Breer realizes the reason he is able to exist like this is because he was beckoned by Kush's feelings, which he deems as proof that she must be safe. Now alone on the boat, Yuna tries to whistle, believing Titus will come running, but hesitates. What is Titus, a dog?
This feels like I'm not even listening to a story about the same game.
Meanwhile, Besaid Village is in chaos as everyone interrogates Titus on Yuna's whereabouts. Titus explains that to bring Yuna back they must find Breer as per his order from Kush, and the village begins a search in the ruins. Titus remembers Breer had told him about his main reason for coming to Besaid, to fulfill a promise he made to a priest to research the ruins. and Machina on Besaid and file a report to Bebel. Tidus recalls the power Kush had given him and dashes off, leaving Waka and the rest of the villagers bewildered. He tries to imagine Yuna, hoping that Kush's power will help him reach her, and finds her at the beach. Tidus explains to her about Kush and the power she gave him, how he must find her. Using the power, they find a frail Kush sitting in a chair. Yuna sees she is just a beckoning. Breer appears, will leave to reunite with Kush. He thanks for helping them meet before they disappear together. With Kush gone, the power she had granted Tidus vanishes, and Yuna and Tidus return to Besaid. Tidus and Yuna travel to Xanarkand by foot, due to the airship still not flying. They stand on the spot where they once had a bonfire during their pilgrimage, and asks Tidus if he's real and not just a dream. She smiles, praying that they can be together forever. However, Yuna knows that she beckoned him after the incident on the island via her feelings for him. And if Tidus realizes this, he will disappear, as what occurred when Breer realized he was a beckoning via Kush's feelings. So, Tidus is just a figment of Yuna's imagination and will disappear if he realizes this. By the way, trivia for this article. You want to know what is the trivia for this article?
What?
The novella has been received negatively by many Japanese fans.
Really?
I wonder why.
I can't imagine why, possibly.
And, like, if you thought that was bad, in the next continuation of this story, which was actually a playable sequel to Final Fantasy X-2, called Final Fantasy X-2 Last Mission, it takes place like 3 months after defeating the Gennagun. And in this last story, the story gets even more stupid, if you ask me, in some ways. Basically, I'm gonna summarize this one because reading all the stuff for the previous story was bad enough. I'm just gonna mention important points. Basically, the girls of Final Fantasy X-2, after finishing their mission in the game, realize that after they don't have a mission anymore, that they didn't really have anything else bringing them together. So they realize that they weren't that great of friends to begin with.
It's time for them to have a death match.
No, they just weren't very good friends since they had nothing else bringing them together, so they kind of go their separate ways. That's kind of how that story goes. That's a very summarized version of the last mission. But there's also, I think, a third continuation to Final Fantasy X, which I think is the worst one, probably. And that's saying something, going by Tidus dying being pretty bad. But in one of the continuations to Final Fantasy X, you know how the previous story emphasized how Yuna
yeah, maybe it's something that would be bringing them together, is them being family.
But you know, one thing, like, the previous story emphasized was that Yuna wanted to be with Tidus forever. But in one of the continuations to Final Fantasy X, Yuna actually breaks up with Tidus after getting jealous about one of Tidus's female friends, and also ends up getting interested in a different guy from Tidus entirely, completely going against the theme of them not wanting to break up and wanting to be together and share each other's suffering.
At that point, it just becomes Jerry Springer.